Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to the first day of the two-day webinar series conducted as a part of the 9th CSI InApp NASA Student Project Awards. The CSI InApp NASA Student Project Awards has been instituted jointly by the Computer Society of India, CSI Trivandrum Chapter, and InApp Information Technologies to identify and recognize the best software project designed and implemented by college students across the country. Through this initiative, we provide a unique platform for the young talents within the country to showcase their ideas and present their project to an expert group, thus enabling rich learning through interaction with technology leaders from the industry. The final result of the 9th CSI InApp Awards are planned to be declared on the 4th of July at an online event. The ceremony will begin with a panel discussion on the topic, Reimagining Education from First Principles. This session provides a unique opportunity to interact with esteemed personalities from the industry as well as academia. This will be followed by the declaration of the results of the awards. This whole session is live streamed across thousands via YouTube. The audience can post their questions to the speakers via live chat on YouTube. Our volunteers will share it with the speaker. Now, let us get started with the first session of the day. COVID has proved to be a showstopper to many industries, while medicine is busy creating the cure to this. We need our entrepreneurs to support our economy and help us overcome these trying times. Our first speaker of the day was the winner of the last year's CSI InApp Awards, Ms. Arundhati Kuru. Arundhati is a graduate student pursuing an MS in Computer Science at the University of Southern California, Los Angeles. She works at the intersection of web, data, and intelligence. She is currently working as a software engineering intern with Qualcomm Snapdragon 5G team at their global headquarters in San Diego. Arundhati is also trying to fund her own startup with a solution to beat the pandemic. She has closely worked with the US military and intelligence on an AI tool. She has also worked as a technology fellow at Impact Labs, New York City, and was a former computer vision intern at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. She was also the winner of CSI InApp Awards 2019 for the project Anomalous Activity Detection for Intelligent Visual Surveillance. It's my sincere pleasure to introduce Ms. Arundhati Kuru, who will be speaking on the topic Entrepreneurship During COVID. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Akila, for the warm introduction. Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here. In fact, as the previous winner of CSI InApp Awards 2019, it feels extra special to be here. And I think before starting, I should give a quick shout out to the organizers at Computer Society of India and InApp for meticulously curating this webinar series. And again, giving me this opportunity to talk about something I'm deeply passionate about. So I think we'll get started. I will share my screen right now. If you could enable screen sharing, any of the organizers probably could enable screen sharing.
Ma'am, is it now possible for you to share the screen?
It's coming as the host disabled participant screen sharing. So yeah, if you could give me the privilege, I'll right away share my screen.
Okay, ma'am, just a second.
Yeah, sure. Yes, I have the privilege now. Okay. So I think, I hope that all of you can see my screen now. The title of this webinar is Entrepreneurship During COVID-19. So a little bit about me. So I was born and brought up in the city of Trivandrum, Kerala. And I went to school there. I did my bachelor's in computer science and engineering from Sri Chitra Tirunal College of Engineering, Trivandrum. I was really active during my college days and especially in developer communities and technical societies. And I've been a frequent visitor to Cochin for meetups and talks and conferences, and also been a frequent visitor to Bangalore for anything related to technology. During my third year, I got a chance to work as a computer vision intern at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. And right now, I'm pursuing my master's in computer science at Los Angeles, and right now, working as a software engineering intern for Qualcomm's Snapdragon 5G team. And I'll talk about some of these experiences into the presentation, but I'll be drawing insights directly from some of my recent experiences and probably drawing parallels. Now, this is the most important issue that we are all facing right now, the COVID 19 pandemic. So, historically speaking, the pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. And this pandemic is no different. It is a portal, it's a gateway between one world and the next. We can either walk through it dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our dead ideas, our dead rivers, and the smoky skies, or we can walk through lightly with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. I think as technologists, entrepreneurs, and innovators, we are probably leading this fight against the pandemic. And what is it like to live in this new normal that we are seeing around us? I think we have a higher sense of health and safety. We are starting to appreciate the efforts of people at the front line more than ever before. Innovation is being redefined. Collaboration is happening across boundaries which we never knew was possible, and remote work is getting redefined, and there is an increased sense of fairness. And whatever inequalities were there already, the pandemic is actually exposing these glaring inequalities. Systemic injustices are being brought out, they're being debated upon, and they're being forced to act upon. And recreation and free time is being redefined, and there is a higher sense of cultural awareness. So, I would urge all of you to think what it means in this scenario to move quick and move smart. So, this is a recent conversation that I had with my friend when all of us were in lockdown. In fact, going into lockdown, personally speaking, gave me a chance to catch up with a lot of friends that I've been meaning to talk to. So, this is how the conversation went. I just dropped him a text asking, "How's it going?" He replied, "I'm perfectly fine." And I asked him, "Where are you?" And he said, "In the depths of despair." I was like, "What is up?" And he said, his work can be used for COVID 19 diagnosis, and he's actually working on that from a lab at IISc. So I was curious to know more about his work, and I asked him in detail about certain aspects of his thesis project. And in fact, he was building a machine which is more fast, lightweight, low power, and cheap for testing. It is in fact a machine that does PCR reactions, polymerase chain reactions. And I'm not sure how many of the attendees here today know about the testing process that is done when a sample from a patient is taken, and what happens when it goes to the lab. So in the lab, what they do is the nasal swab, which is taken as a sample, is mixed with certain chemicals in a very strict, in a very temperature contained, double sealed room, so that the contaminants, especially the virus, doesn't escape outside. And in that room, this machine actually first it converts the viral RNA to DNA, and the DNA strand is amplified. So if it is getting amplified and if there is a tinge of fluorescence, it means that there is viral RNA present in the sample and the patient is actually tested positive. So normally in commercial PCR machines, this takes about 1 hour to do, but the machine that he was working on, which would alternate between 3 different temperatures, which is in fact more faster, lightweight, of low power and cheaper than the existing machines, would actually do it in about 5 minutes. So this was a great breakthrough, even though they're filing provisional patents for it, but I would still say it is a breakthrough. Then we started talking about how the traditional management principles in market economics would stop working in a rapidly evolving, deadly situation like the one we are seeing today. And in this situation, it's really important that we the breakthroughs like these are visible, and we actually provide enough support and resources to place it into the existing ecosystem. Because right now, time is running out to completely revamp the ecosystem, but the only thing we can do is how do we ensure that these breakthroughs and other products that would actually make an impact in such a situation can be placed into this existing ecosystem. Now, that actually made me think about a framework called as the Lean Startup Framework. This is in fact it is in fact described in detail in a book written by Eric Rice called as The Lean Startup. It's a New York Times bestseller. It talks about how today's entrepreneurs use continuous innovation to create radically successful businesses. So, in fact, during the last semester here at USC, I got to take a course based on the lean startup methodology. What the course essentially did was it simulated an environment where you can run startups without any risks involved. So what you can do is you can form a team. There would be an amazing teaching team, the professor and experts from industry. They would actually help us to run the startup within the simulated virtual environment. So we are given 15 weeks to understand the problem, to consult with the clients, to make this product and actually produce it and fit it in the market. Now, this is from my course page. The course was called Hacking for Defense. And the industry that the lean startup methodology that we used for was the military and intelligence community. So basically, we were taking in problems from the US military and trying to figure out a solution for those problems. Now, as you can see here, it is actually addressing the nation's emerging threats and security challenges. A team of 3 to 5 students from interdisciplinary backgrounds would develop minimum viable products and prototypes by the end of the semester. Now, the good thing about it is that you are getting to use lean startup methodology to help build efficient and successful startups and develop skills to solve problems in any organization. Now, the good thing about the methodology is once you're clear about the framework, you can probably extend it to any industry. So this course basically originated in Stanford University, where they used it for healthcare, and it can be used for healthcare, media, entertainment. And at USC, we used the lean startup methodology to tackle problems from the US military. So now the course started off really well. It's in the first class, I still remember my professor saying, the dream is free, but the hustle is sold separately. The class was really exciting. The professor would order in pizzas, and we used to have open-ended discussions about business, about traditional markets, how to have disruptive products, how to bring in innovation. Now, when I started out, I didn't know anything about the military, the U.S. military, the organizational hierarchy, the intelligence, and the most important problem that we faced was there was an issue of clearance. As international students, it limited us from knowing certain aspects of their processes. But the course was really fun. So I think probably my phone is now full of contacts of military, U.S. military officials. Now, the specific problem that we were given was to develop a translation tool to assist linguistic soldiers within the linguistic battalion of the US military. So we took about 90 to 95 interviews with professionals, with military officers, with officials from the US Department of Homeland Security, US Department of State. We talked to officials from the United Nations, because this is a really interconnected problem space. So we had to talk to all these beneficiaries and non-beneficiaries, including engineers from Amazon and Google, to understand the technical aspects. So there was a really good customer discovery process. And then they gave us all the necessary connections and funding to actually build the startup within a classroom environment. We used to have weekly progress updates, and they used to ask us how well it's going and do you face any obstacles in reaching your targets. Now, due to the restrictions imposed by the pandemic, the class had to shift to virtual, like we had to do it over Zoom, but it went terrific even though. And starting out, we really didn't know anything about the problem. As you can see here, this was week 1 for us. Uh, we were struggling to understand the partners, the activities, what value is this tool going to offer the client. But when we reached week 15, we had a clear sense of what we had to do and what are the value propositions that we were offering the client. And we in fact had a demo day where we would present the tool, that the prototype that we built, to the captain of the battalion, and he was really interested, and he was even willing to procure the tool and give us necessary funding to move forward with it. So this was a great process, a great learning experience for me. But though we had limitations of working within a classroom setting, I really wanted to explore the startup ecosystem outside the university. So that is how my entrepreneurship journeys would start. I was sitting in one of these USC's libraries, as you see here, and a random person who walked by asked me, where is Blackstone Launchpad? I was not sure what Blackstone Launchpad was. I said, I have no clue. And he wished me a good day and he walked away. But I was curious to know what this entity was or what this thing was. So I Googled it. To my surprise, I found out that Blackstone Launchpad is actually a part of Incubate USC. It's basically one of USC's campus entrepreneurship programs where they would help startups to prosper by providing mentorship, by providing any resources or any potential advice that would be required to successfully start up. Now, it redirected me to another link called the Startup Tree, where again I created a profile, I set up my account. It was free for students. You get to meet co founders, partners, team members. You get to participate in forums. I even attended a few events that Startup Tree organized on campus. You can look for jobs, ventures, you name it, you can find it here. So, this was the whole deal about USC's incubator and Startup Tree. Now, I used to get messages like this from people in the Startup Trees messaging platform. So somebody would reach out to me asking, so we have this geolocation machine learning platform that we would like to build. Would you like to be a part of it? Would you like to help me building this? So this was the open nature that I've been seeing here in California, at least regarding starting up and building and getting together as a team. This was really interesting for me, but I still decided to wait and not jump into anything like this. And we also used to get emails directly to our department's mailing list, say from a professor who is running a startup who is willing to hire a data scientist. The requirements would be often attached as a PDF. You can just reach back to them and say that you're interested in this opportunity, and you'd be part of the team if you meet the requirements, if you meet the eligibility criteria. So that was when, I think in early April, I got a message from someone on LinkedIn. It said, I actually found you in the USC Blackstone Launchpad network, and I thought I'd reach out and connect. So basically, I'm trying to connect the dots here. Now, the lady was called Hazel, and she said, like, I've seen your profile. I would like to jump on a call with you. So I think it's this easy here to talk about opportunities in general. And I was like, I thought I'll probably learn something from her as well, because at that time she was running a firm in downtown Los Angeles. So I was really looking forward to talking with her. And then we got into a Zoom call and we talked about my projects. I asked her about her ventures, and she decided that I was a good fit for the startup, for the team that she was forming to build a product. And I finally said yes, but she said the level of involvement is completely up to you. But I was definitely willing to try out what this had in store for me. But time just flew, and I just brought in a few of my developer friends. She brought in some product and operations experts, and we formed this team, as you see on the slide. And that is how a small product called Varna was formed. So basically, Varna, that the product that we're working on right now, is an AI-based sensor platform that would provide early detection of elevated body temperatures and other vitals. So it's basically, we're trying to redefine healthcare worker protection. But the good thing about Varna is that we have thought about it initially, and we really don't want to restrict us to a particular industry, because this has wide-ranging implications across industries like, say, travel and tourism. So basically, we have certain thermals, selfie thermals, which does thermal screening using computer vision algorithms. You have biosensors. There's a mobile application that would do pre-screening. And there's a web platform that would come as an enterprise software. So this is something about Varna, the product that I'm working on right now. But the next thing we know is that we decided to enroll in a startup weekend, which is more or less like a pitch contest. So in just 54 hours, we had to build this prototype out. We experienced the highs, lows, fun, and pressure that make up the life at a startup. And we were really elated to find that we came out as winners of the USA region for the startup weekend. Now, the good thing about the startup weekend was it was organized by a global investment platform called Aztec Stars. Now, this was organized in 54 countries across the world, and they were trying to bring the winners from these 54 countries to one global platform. Now, as you can see here, you can connect, you can discover, learn, and start. Now, if you go by the numbers, there were about 23,000 teams that were formed, about 193,000 alumni, and about they have their range in about 150 countries across the world. Now, if you see here, there were these 54 countries range from Poland, Russia, Jordan to Turkey, and we were the winners from United States. And these winners were brought together, and then out of this 54 winners, they screened 20 winners, 20 countries, and these 20 countries were brought together in a global scale. We were made to undergo a global bootcamp where they would basically help us to revamp our pitch, make our value propositions sharp, understand what resources we would actually require, what funding we would actually require to take this to market. So, what we saw was they were drastically reducing the time that would actually take for a product to go into the market by bringing all the necessary funding and resources and mentorship to us. Um, and parallelly, apart from enrolling in all these pitch contests and startup weekends, we decided to give hackathons a shot because DevPost is an amazing platform where you can find hackathons. You can basically, build products, practice skills, learn technologies, win prizes, and basically grow your network. The network growing part is probably the most important part, I would say. So if you take, for example, the Bay Area Hacks, they are offering about $76,000 in prizes. So if you already have a team, if you already have a working prototype or say a product with you, you can easily enroll in one of these hackathons and secure funding. And if you don't have, if you're just looking for something to work on weekends, still you can just enroll. You can find team members, collaborate, and work on something. So this was a great platform where we realized there is so much that we can offer, especially when it comes to competitions like this. Now, universities are also providing funding, resources, and mentorship as part of their programs directly out of these campuses. So, for instance, I got to take part in a program which is called Hack for Hope, which is conducted by USC's Marshall School of Business. Now, the aspect that surprised me the most was there were two tracks: Hack for Now and Hack for the Future. If you look at Hack for Now, the final deliverable was a 2-minute video that explains a solution ready for immediate production or deployment. So they would actually give us $25,000 in funding if we get shortlisted as the winning project. And in about 2 to 3 weeks, we are supposed to be ready with the product, getting all their help and resources, and we are directly launching it into the market. So this is how universities especially are curating their programs so that it would be of great help to entrepreneurs, especially student entrepreneurs. Now there were different themes. If you see here, health and wellness, online education, communication, and connections. But increasingly what I'm seeing is, due to the sense of urgency that we are facing now because of the pandemic, they have completely revamped their programs and made it more structured so that it's easier for somebody to form a team, build a product, and directly launch it to market if it's worth the hassle. Now, then there was Hack for Future, products for building building something for the new normal that we are seeing. Again, the deliverable remained the same, but the good thing was we still had a bit more time, say 3 to 4 months, to actually launch it to market. Now, this is again another challenge I got to participate last month. It was called MIT's COVID-19 Challenge, where we are actually building a solution for the COVID-19 crisis. So as you can see here, they were able to, put these resources into continents like Africa and Latin America, where there wouldn't be as many opportunities for resources and funding and mentorship as you see in the West. So this was a great global platform where people from all across the world came together and they were trying to build a solution for the pandemic. Now, if you see this slide, you can see the kind of support university like MIT is actually offering with all these entities involved. But personally speaking, during the competition, there were about 10 tracks, and each track had about 10 sub tracks. And if you want to participate as a team, you can. If you want to participate as an individual, you still can. So if you're an individual, you can just enroll. If you are selected, you would be allotted a track. You would go into the track, you would basically tell everybody else your idea. If there are people with similar ideas, or if there are people with skills that they feel can contribute to your idea, you would basically come together in that weekend, you would build it out, you would pitch it in front of the panelists. And if you're selected, they would give you everything that you require to actually make it happen. Now, during the final pitch, I still remember this was a team that was formed. It was an engineering student from India. There was a nurse from South Africa. There was a Harvard Medical School student. So these people formed a team and they actually gave a pitch. So this is in fact a collaboration across boundaries. So I'm actually seeing all this, and it brings me so much happiness to see this kind of collaboration happening in the technology space. Now, as startups, we always aim for something like Y Combinator. So Y Combinator is actually a seed money start accelerator. It's working out of the US. And the good thing about Y Combinator, or probably the greatest thing about them, is that they have launched startups like Stripe, Airbnb, DoorDash, Dropbox, Coinbase, and Instacart. So Y Combinator is specifically providing opportunities for bio and healthcare companies to help in the COVID-19 crisis. So they have a special track for COVID now. But other than that, they're still looking out for amazing products and startups for their acceleration program. Now, if you think that you are out of reach of the Y Combinator, or if you have a product or a startup idea in mind, if you think that you are out of reach, you are definitely not, because I personally know a few of my friends out of College of Engineering Trivandrum who sat for the Y Combinator's interview once their application got accepted. So it's possible for everybody to make the cut, but it's just that you have to have a good product, a good idea, and a great team to present with. Now, now I would come to this. So these were some diverse opportunities, alternate tracks that you can think of when you think about entrepreneurship that I discussed about. But this is another format that I would like to talk to you about, which I had a chance to attend. So this is called the Impact Fellowship. This was happening in New York City. It was a two-week technical fellowship to create the next generation of social entrepreneurs. So the good thing about the fellowship was they brought in these university students from Harvard, Princeton, Yale, and universities like mine to a lab in Manhattan. And we were supposed to come up with a product, find a team there, and build something out and pitch it in front of venture capitalists, entrepreneurs, Wall Street traders, and other angel investors. So over the 2 weeks, you get to work at the intersection of technology and social impact. Say you can take something like social justice, or homelessness, or climate, or gender. You can take something like this, and you can combine it to find a technology solution and directly pitch it in front of these eminent panel of judges. And if they like your product, they would fund you then and there. So this was my team. We actually built a platform which would redefine what activism is. So it was basically a platform for modern activism. I had a great experience building the product. But the good thing was, during the program, we would hack late into night to build this product. But throughout the day, they kept us engaged with these amazing sessions. So a typical day at the fellowship would look like this. In the morning, you would have, say, a chief of staff from White House during Obama's administration coming and talking to us about, say, politics and technology. In the evening, we would have somebody over from Google or Palantir to talk about machine learning. In the evening, we would have somebody working for the New York Times to talk about technology and journalism. And in the night, there would be somebody talking about conservation and technology from the World Wildlife Fund. So these were a few snapshots of my time in New York. This was the workspace I worked in the Fifth Avenue. This was how a random brainstorming session looked like. And this is me sitting and hacking into night. And this was the mood of the workspace. It was a great learning opportunity, especially to work at the intersection of social impact and technology, in the hope of getting to know what social entrepreneurship really is. Now, this is something that I want to draw your attention to: unicorns versus camels. So, unicorn was a term coined in 2013. Now, it was coined based on the idea that if a startup would reach a 1 billion plus valuation. Now, when this term was coined, there were just about 39 companies that would meet the criteria. But now it has quickly grown to more than 460 companies. The, the important aspect that I want to talk to all of you today is about the approach taken by these unicorns to actually reach this 1 billion plus valuation. Because a crisis, a pandemic like COVID-19 has in fact showed us the volatility and the economic uncertainty that can come in, especially when it comes to the ecosystem that we're dealing with. But COVID 19 basically accelerated all the red flags that were already there. So there were a string of recently failed IPOs, which was actually drawing certain red flags on the mythical unicorn. But COVID 19 basically turned these red flags into blaring alarms. Now, the approach modeled by many unicorns would be unsustainable in the environment. This is the realization that we got only after COVID-19 came in, because then we started to realize maybe some of the business models weren't sustainable enough, and it couldn't be viable in the long run. So it is this fact that's probably causing these massive layoffs that we are seeing today, and the salary cuts and all the uncertainty that is being seen around, especially in this space. Now, that is when the philosophy of a camel would come into picture. So, why are certain camels rising up? So, by camels, I mean there are certain startups that are inherently resilient, they're cautious, they're committed, and they're customer focused. By resilient, I mean they're prepared for the future. They're thoughtfully, strategically trying to grow. In By cautious, I mean they are trying to maintain reserves. Uh, they're financially conservative. They're more focused on hiring the right team and focusing on building the technology that will go on to revolutionize industries. They're really committed. They're dedicated to business building fundamentals, and which would ensure impact on a long-term success. And their customer focus, they're driven by customer needs. They put customers first, and they're not really worried about reaching that 1 billion mark, or trying to please the investors. They are focused on the customers and only customers. So this would actually bring us to something called as sustainable business models. So why are sustainable business models important? So they not only thrive on disruptive innovation and human-centered solutions, but they also reinforce a sense of community. They have collaboration, they have cooperative collaboration, I would say, and they have drastic transparency on how things work, especially things like the supply chain. They're committed to their goals. They have a long-term commitment to their goals, and they are innovatively utilizing technology for the process. Now, to give you an example from the Indian context, I would take probably Amul for example. Amul is a company which basically revolutionized an entire industry and is a cooperative, and it is still thriving because of the fundamental that its business model is in fact sustainable. They have a sense of community. They have cooperative collaboration. It's very transparent how their process works, and they're using technology to ensure that it is still driving their business. And another example I could give is probably Philips, a company like Philips. Then there is Narayana Health, which is based out of Bangalore. They're basically trying to offer services to the economically higher uh, people from economically higher backgrounds, and taking that to drive their business and almost provide free service to people below, say, the poverty line. So these are great business models to look at. So it's just that now is the time we can actually make a difference in terms of business models. probably shifting in from the traditional paths that we have been taking to creating a more sustainable way of looking at things. Now, if you look at the camel, another example I could give for a startup or a company that would fall into the camel category would be Zoom. Zoom and Cloud Flare. These are all amazing companies that are actually strategically growing. And as far as the unicorns, you have probably seen the debacles that were caused recently at WeWork and other companies. So it is really important that, especially during important moments in history, such as what we are going through today, how can we think of ways to innovate if we realize that certain things are not right or certain things have scope of improving? We improve it and not stick on to something that we have been doing for a long time. So that is where sustainable business models would come into picture, where they would have a core which would deliver value, and you can basically extend it and bring in streams of revenue. Now, then it comes to who an entrepreneur is. Now, the dictionary definition would be one who sets up a business or businesses taking on financial risks in the hope of a profit. Now, personally growing through this journey, personally going through this journey and exploring what the startup ecosystem would look like and talking to a lot of people, I think these are some of the character traits that I have found helpful in my journey, at least, to have a growth mindset. How can you ensure that you always learn and propel that learning to grow? And I always think that we are in for a marathon and not for a sprint. So it's not a 100-meter, 200-meter race that we are running. It's about the long term. So I would still say life and work would be a marathon for me and not a sprint where I try to accomplish, short-term goals, but always keeping the long-term picture in mind. Now, this is one thing that has helped me a lot, to be open minded. I would say really open minded, because when you just open up your heart and soul to new interesting possibilities and opportunities, you never know what would click. You would probably look at things in a different way after having certain experiences, but you will only have those experiences if you are open enough to actually let it in. Now, the next thing I would say, and an interesting and probably a really important trait, is to listen more than you speak. So listen, that's like twice, listen twice and you speak, because it's very important that you listen to people and their stories. And when you speak, make sure that you're confident, you're communicating your points really well, because listening is the most important aspect, and then comes speaking. But if you are confident enough to convey your points very crisply and clearly, I think speaking would be enough. uh, Now comes patience. Now, patience, in the normal sense, yes, you need to be patient to see through things, but here I mean patience in a very different way. So it's not always that you're guaranteed to succeed, right? You might fail, and it's just that you have so much to learn from these failures as well. So you fail, and you have to be patient enough to see through these failures, to be at it, to stick with it, and to see it until the end. So be patient enough to see through these failures, because only then you will be ensured to succeed in the future. Now, and a thought that I always keep in mind when it comes to patience is, I'm really curious to know what will happen if I don't give up. So this is one thing that has always helped me, and I'm really sharing it with you because I think it's a good way to approach things. Now, find genuine interest in people and their stories, because it is for us innovators and technologists, we are actually creating for the people. So it's important that you listen to these people and their stories, and think of innovative ways in which how our solutions could probably make a change in their lives, in their day-to-day lives. And now, for me, I would define entrepreneur as someone who would find opportunities that nobody else sees, and who would create possibilities that nobody else can. So that would be for me what an ideal entrepreneur is. Now, just leaving all of you with this, that I would just say, just start. Start where you are, do what you can, use what you have. Because unless you start, you just can't go forward. So wherever you are, just start, whether it be a hobby project, or be it a startup or a solution that you think there is a market for, just start. We never know what will happen. Just find interesting people, talk to them about it, bring them all together, form a team, work on interesting things, and I'm sure that you will be fulfilled. Now I would like to get in touch with all of you. You can find any contact information here at arundhatikuru.space. I would really love to have conversations with all of you. And once again, thank you for inviting me and giving this opportunity to talk to all of you about something that I'm really passionate about. I think maybe some of you, or probably all of you, can take away some things from this webinar. Thank you.
Now let's move on to some questions from the audience.
Absolutely.
Participants can post their questions in the comment box.
Okay. So we have a question. How has COVID affected negatively or positively your entrepreneur? Subjective question, because for me, the solution that I'm working on with the startup that I'm involved in right now is basically a solution to beat the pandemic. I was always interested in starting up and trying to engage with users and build products for them, but it is probably, if it was not, if there was no sense of urgency like this, I wouldn't have probably just started out like that, what I'm doing today. So this, as I mentioned, this is a very subjective question, but I think if you are really interested to find solutions to problems out there, uh, with such an important event like COVID, you just don't feel like sitting and doing nothing. You feel like contributing. So that has in fact helped me to push my efforts in this direction. Now we have another question. It is asking, someone's asking, how can students from India get exposure to the platforms you mentioned? That is a really great question. So as I mentioned, my aim today was to talk to students directly and student entrepreneurs directly, to let them know that there are these many opportunities out there waiting for you. Now, one important opportunity that COVID has brought along, as I mentioned before, is the possibility to collaborate across boundaries, because the geographical boundaries are sort of blurring. And since if you have an internet and maybe a laptop, you can start building anything right now, and you can talk to people across continents, and then you can form a team and you can start building. So I think just being in a particular geography is not going to limit you from doing anything. In fact, with today's scenario, it has probably opened up more possibilities than ever before. And I would urge students to, like the platforms I mentioned, DevPost is a great platform where they post about hackathons and other opportunities. You can get in touch with your probably college developer community. There are developer clubs out there and other organizations that are actually exposing these students to many opportunities. So when it comes to international platforms, say for example, I mentioned MIT's hackathon. So this is open to anybody in the world. So you just have to fill in an application, submit it. If they feel that your idea is worth it, they would just take you in. So I think you should definitely make use of this opportunity and can't see this time as probably a chance for you to work on something impactful, develop some skills that you've always been meaning to work on. And I think it would definitely be a great opportunity for students out there. So don't bother about the geographical limitations. Just go out there, find opportunities, and start collaborating with people. We have one other question. How can you find the right resources, experience, and knowledge to build a sustainable startup venture? Okay, it's a great question. So I think a good friend once mentioned this thought to me. Your aspirations are a direct function of the exposure you get. So the more you are exposed, the more your aspirations will go. So basically, it's simple equation: aspirations equals function of exposure. So I think the first step in the right direction would be to just go out there and talk to people. Find a good set of mentors, try to talk to them, ideate, try to talk to friends who are like-minded. And so once you start exploring this, you will eventually start seeing more of these opportunities, and you will eventually find a way to hack into these resources. So for me, as an undergraduate student, nobody told me that these were the possibilities out there. I had to go in there and find it myself. But it is an interesting process when you try to explore something like this personally. But I would say now the community, the development and the sense of community, it is in fact changing with again competitions like CSI InApp Awards. You are trying to come together as a team and trying to work on something really impactful. So I think once you start exploring, these would come to you. But definitely keep an eye out for these webinars, because now miles apart I am giving you all these information. Probably you would take hours to find it by yourself, so in just like under 1 hour I'm giving you a new set of perspectives. So I think the more you're exposed, you will probably end up finding more resources, more experiences, and again knowledge on how to build something that you're really passionate about. Now we have another question. How was your experience interviewing with Qualcomm, and what do you hope to do after graduation? Okay, that's a really great question. So I'll probably give you a glimpse of how the interviewing process here in US is like. So I've been here in Los Angeles for the past 1 year now. It's almost like 1 year, and I came in August 2019, directly after my BTech. And it was a great experience to come here, understand how everything works. But when we started into the internship season, we don't have campus cells, placement cells working to give working to bring recruiters, or working to bring opportunities or jobs directly to you. We just have to go out and find them. But the only thing the university would do for students is that they hold information sessions, they hold seminars, they hold recruiter meetup sessions, where you can just go in, walk up to a recruiter and give your resume and talk about the things that you've done. So it's a very different process, unlike that you see back in India, but it's a really tough process. So when I was compiling a list of the internships that I wanted to do, they were like, I had a huge Excel sheet with some 150 companies. I would mark it by deadline. I would say, okay, I have to apply to this before this deadline. So it was a huge effort on my side, but it was again, the process was really, even though it was tough, it was fun. But again, I applied to Qualcomm in their online portal. I had to submit my transcripts, my resume, and fill out certain basic information. So after doing that, a recruiter reached out to me. So I made it past the resume round. So the recruiter reached out to me and said, like, we would like to schedule interviews with you. So these were phone interviews. So I had two phone interviews, basically coding interviews, and they would talk to you directly from your resume. Now, so although you talk to the interviewer through phone, they would send you a coding link. So you had to live code it, and the interviewer would see what you're coding and ask you to optimize it. So I was asked very fundamental coding questions, and probably say if you go by lead code, it's probably medium to hard lead code questions. Now, after that interview, probably I think after 1 or 2 weeks, the recruiter reached back to me with an offer saying, okay, you have been recruited for an internship with Qualcomm. And after about 2 to 3 months, I got my team. And right now I'm working for the Snapdragon 5G team. And I am right now building a code generation framework for the Mac control layer of the 5G team. So it's been really exciting so far, but the only thing is the whole process is being made remote. So I've set up a work desk at my home, and I'm working from home right now. So there are in fact limitations. You can't be on campus, but still I'm getting to learn a lot. Now we'll go to the next question. You talked about working with nurses and engineers in your team. how were you able to communicate your ideas with different people from different fields in your group, since all of them have different expertise and it would have been difficult to express what you know? Oh, this is a great question. I'm glad that you, all of you, have been listening so closely to what I've been talking about. So, in fact, so when our startup was, established, we made sure that we had people, at least one stakeholder in the group. So as I mentioned, right now we are working for, we the product is for healthcare workers, but it can be extended to any industries. So we already have traction with a few emergency shelters for homeless people in and around the LA County. So there is someone from the homeless, someone who's managing these homeless shelters and other facilities in LA, in our group. He is also a registered nurse. So he is looking after the operations. So the good thing is, it is really important to have a team with interdisciplinary background. So I am probably leading the engineering efforts in the group. So four of us are engineers. There's a UI expert. There are two product experts. There is somebody specifically working on AI. There is somebody working on system architecture. But then there is also the stakeholder who is really important, who can probably get us in touch with the clients for whom we are actually targeting this product. So I think regarding the technical aspects, probably the operations expert wouldn't have much say because it would come to us. But to know the requirements, to know the problems, it is really important that we also include this person in the group so that he actually tells us, okay, these are the problems that I'm seeing. These are probably some solutions that we would require. So to gather the requirements, it would always be nice to have a stakeholder or the person for whom this product is in our group. So it is not at all difficult, because I think the more you understand it, or the better you understand it, you would be able to simplify things for them. And I personally think that is quite a talent. If you know something really, really well, but if you can't explain it to somebody else, then there's no point of knowing it that well. So I always make sure that I'll be able to explain a very complex technical solution to a naive user or somebody who's just beginning with. So these are probably some things that you can probably keep in mind. I'm sure this would help you in the future. We'll go to the next one more question. In the COVID times, many government project fundings were scrapped recently. What would you suggest a young student like me in college with a project idea to jumpstart it in a place where even running existing businesses are struggling to fund themselves? Okay, so the question, as I'll probably try to understand it more correctly. So government project fundings were scrapped recently, and so I think the person who's probably asking the question is trying to understand, even though the fundings which were already present, they were all pulled back, and he's struggling. If this person, he or she, has an idea, how would you start, even though you find that there are businesses all around that you see are struggling? I think there's always alternative ways to fund your product or your startup. So some of the alternatives I discussed today, but I'm sure that even to implement certain things in the scale, to find out certain temporary solutions, um, as you know, we're going through times of uncertainty. The government is probably, many of the governments across the world, they're facing huge I would say budget crunches. But so it is quite understandable why they would take such an action. But as I pointed out, so government funding would be one path you can take to fund the idea that you have. But there are so many paths out there. There are so many funding opportunities out there. They're basically sitting on top of huge amounts of money, but they're trying to find these products and solutions to fund it for. So I would really say, I'm sure that probably in India we are opening up to all these, I would say, parallel funding opportunities. But it is definitely a path or an avenue that you can take to or you can look into to see if those the funding opportunities provided by these organizations or these universities or these accelerators would actually help you in funding your product. So if you find out that okay, it's not working in one way, you definitely try to find some other way to make it work. So there are opportunities out there, and a situation like COVID has brought in, as I mentioned, a sense of urgency. So everybody is basically jumping in and trying to provide the best resources so that these products, which can probably provide impact, would go out into the market and ultimately benefit all of us. And I think that is the end of our questions. And I had a great time talking to all of you. Thanks for these wonderful questions.
Thank you, ma'am, for the very interactive session. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Gina Peter, Associate Vice President of InApp, to share a few words about the session. Ma'am, please.
Thank you, Adira. And thank you, Arundhati. It was very insightful, some beautiful thoughts. You said dream is free, as one of your professors said, and it's true, dream is free. And you showed by sheer hard work and perseverance and some innovative thinking, you have made this dream, your dream, a reality, I guess. And it's truly an honor that you were able to join us to hear for this talk and present your views and your experiences. And I would like to thank the audience too for taking out some their time and to attend this session. I think you were in your elements because you are also in the process of funding your own startup. So I hope the audience enjoyed the talk, and I would like to thank you once again, Arundhati, and the audience for taking the time and to participate towards the build-up of the main event that is scheduled for 4th of July. Thank you, and hope to interact with you more. And please do come for more webinars so that we can share thoughts and truly some interesting stuff. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina, for your kind words. I thank Ms. Arundhati Kurup personally and as part of the CSI InApp team for staying up late, by the way, it is 10:30 in the night in Los Angeles, and giving us this wonderful session. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Data science and data analysis are one of the hottest technologies in the industry now. Next, let us move on to the next session of the day, where we have the energetic Mr. Thomas Telly, who is joining us from San Francisco, Los Angeles, USA. He will be speaking on his journey in the data science industry. Mr. Thomas Telly is an analyst and deals with the global restaurant growth analytics and insights at Uber San Francisco. He has been at the Uber for the past 4 years. Mr. Thomas has been in different positions as analyst, sales operations associate, handling different regions from Trivandrum to Asia Pacific, and now at a global division. Being a native of Trivandrum, Telly completed his schooling in the Loyola School. He was also the winner of the 6th edition of the CSI InApp Awards for the project Data Harvester. Today, he joins us to share his experience and challenges throughout his career from Trivandrum to San Francisco, USA. Over to you, sir.
Hey, thanks Akila for the intro. I hope you guys can hear me. My name is Thomas. I'm sorry about the yellow lighting. It's late at night over here, and my room is having yellow lights. So hope I'll start off by saying hope everyone is staying safe during these times, and you and your families are all safe. And I want to thank Biju sir for this opportunity and Abhishek for coordinating with me and listening to all my chats and wants, I guess. So the I would like to take you through a basic snippet of my life, like how tech and I met at some point in my life, and how it is still teaching me even today. And I kind of thought I'll split it into like a few chapters where like kind of till college what it is for me through college and in-app awards, and then post in-app awards when I joined Uber, and till where I am now. To start with, I want to start with my formative ages, like from when I was a kid. And I thought about when did I actually start programming, and when did I like start my relationship with tech. And I mean, I could be thankful for the situation I'm in, because the house opposite to the house I grew up in, it was a computer center. And like at a very young age, like second standard or something, I spent time there and started with access to the internet and typing on a computer, which was insane. Like, and it was still floppy disk at that time. Then, like I'd be very thankful because the school I'm from, like Akila said, Leela School, we had a very strong computer science oriented curriculum from a very young age. And I probably started using like Logo, QBasic from like third standard, fourth standard onwards, and started creating websites on HTML in like seventh standard, if I remember right. And I can be thankful enough to my school for that, because if they haven't had that in the curriculum because it's not needed for them to do it, maybe I wouldn't be here right now. And like from there on, like each step has been very interesting. Like I just got hooked on to problem solving for some reason, and like coding for some reason helped me to connect the dots of problem solving. Like I don't know how many of you are familiar with like Logo. I can still remember like the first time I drew a pattern of a square like FD50, RD50, and like you build a square out of like typing four commands on a screen, and it was like an accelerating experience. And I probably think everyone over here would have that first step they took at some point towards tech or anything in general. From there, I kind of skewed on to like web development during my school days, and ended up like trialing and erroring out like even Photoshop and some visual media tools, especially to help with the college fest that I was coordinating called La Fest. My bad, my school fest called La Fest, which I headed. But since I was very close with the teammate heading the tech team, we used to like jam together. And I think if I remember right, bootstrapping as a concept for HTML, CSS came along around the time we were doing this, and Flash-based websites started changing into Bootstrap-based backend, and like mobile websites and all that came into being at that point. And starting to work on that, trying out templates, trialing the code out, tinkering with CSS, like essentially that was me, like at a very young age, like tinkering and being inquisitive. And the internet, like the most amazing thing, you Google, you find it. Like I guess all of you would know that by now. From there, I took a interesting step in my life when I decided to do computer science engineering, and I joined Ma Basilius College, where I met Biju sir. It was really interesting. Like I had this thought process and exposure to online content of teaching myself. And suddenly when you go to a college to learn computer science, it was pretty interesting. Like you have 9 to 5 classes, and you have teachers coming in teaching you, but you kind of think like you are learning the latest things from the internet, but the curriculum is not up to date at that point. But I'm glad now, like the curriculum has shifted a lot with KTU coming into play, and a lot of up to date technologies excuse me, being taught in classes. From there, I've met, like, I mean, I think this is the best thing that you can get. Like, just I met my InApp team, my final year project, which won the InApp award. I met the team. They were my classmates in college. And I mean, that is the biggest takeaway I think I have from my college days, when we moved into like a rebel hacking through things mode, where you tinker with Unix scripting, triple boot my HP laptop with Mac, Linux, and Windows, uh, end-to-end encryption, trialing it out, sending messages through SSH, uh, whatnot, spoofing Mac IDs, like a lot of tinkering around, like using the machines that you have to the utmost maximum, overclocking it, and like trying to get through things to the point like we build a website for the fun of it to calculate how much time you actually have to go to class, so that you don't lose your minimum attendance level, so that you can actually maybe stay home and not go to class. Like we did many things during those days. Like it was really fun time, and I think you guys probably would be in that phase of your life, and I'm really excited for you guys. From there, during my final year, Biju sir picked us to an internship slash part-time program with Ernst and Young, with their advanced analytics and AI wing, where we build a final year project, the data harvester platform that you heard about. The data harvester platform, in short, what we did was we took unstructured medical data and we structured it using like 3 machine learning algorithms and a voting mechanism to structure the data, and we pushed it into a graph database called Neo4j. So to talk a bit about that, like to the point when we started this project with EY, we were like kind of really excellent in tech is what we thought. Like we can build websites, we can do databases, we are there. And then we joined this team, and this project guide from EY exposed us to do all these things. And we were like little kids again, like all excited to learn everything again. And it was one of the best times of my life. Like you are learning and hacking through things, and it was a time when you Google something like a CVM, we search for an algorithm or some code or something to Google, or has someone done something, you get only Google Scholar articles, and that is when you actually hit your head against a wall and it's like, my God, we have to read through Scholar articles to actually do something out here. But thankfully our guide Brijesh, like he was excellent. He took his time with us, guided us, and finally we were able to complete the project, which I think the college was very proud of at the time. And Viju sir pushed us to participate in InApp, and like we got placed the first, and that was an amazing experience, to be honest. Like initially I was very skeptical about participating in a competition, and the panel round that I had with the judges, I still remember to date. Like it was amazing. We got the most brilliant questions. We enjoyed it because our project was a highly theoretical project that many people didn't understand. So to actually talk about it with informed people and actually get takeaways from that was an amazing experience. And towards the end of this was the college, my 4 years in college was over, and the project competition was done, and I felt like high and mighty, like I am something now. Like EY actually offered me a data science role. but I was like, no, I need to go to a cool startup. I need to do something different. I am at the peak of my tech genius, I thought at that time, but how wrong I could be, right? And I kind of still remember Bijuswar approaching me multiple times to join these companies. And I was like, no, sir, I don't think I want to join this company. I don't want to do that right now. I think I want something different. And that is when a mutual friend of us reached out, and he said, Uber is like kind of set up in Trivandrum right now. We want like a smart guy to run the business over here. We're looking for fresh graduates. Do you have anyone in mind? And Biju sir directed me to him. And I think that was like one of the biggest steps like for me in my life, because yeah, 4 years ago on October 2016 is when I joined Uber. Like, I was a huge fanboy of Uber, and without even thinking for a sec, I was like, yes, I'm joining. Whatever they want me to do, I'll do. They want me to wait tables, drive a car, do anything for Uber, I'll do it. And so I went and met the team. They onboarded me, and the funny thing was, me being naive, obviously the tech and everything of Uber is run out of US, and Trivandrum is just a city where they run their business in. They don't have any tech people in India. They don't have anyone else in India. They just run the business in India. And that came knock knock to me, but I was super excited because I always wanted to learn the business side of things, and I thought I was good at tech and how I can push that through on the business side of things, which was a highly experimental thing because they didn't want me for a role like that. They wanted a normal person who could talk to drivers and onboard them and like, yes sir, your app is working, you can drive with Uber now. And I was like in the impression like, I'm going to change Uber, I'm going to change the app, I'm going to change the business. And it was super funny. But the biggest learning that came from there was the person who hired me understood my skill sets, and he started thinking and guiding me in the direction that your aim should be to do the tech side of the business in the US, and this should be your first step here. But at that point, I never saw myself doing any of that because I was in Trivandrum, like the name suggests, right? Like Trivandrum to SF. Like I was in Trivandrum running the rights business with another person and trying to learn the business. I didn't think there was any exposure there for me to get Uber to take me from there to US and give me a job there, right? I'm not doing any of that. And we started running the business, and that became so exciting. So you run a city, and slowly I started taking up a bigger role of running the Kerala rights business with the entire team. We are a handful of people, super exciting, thousands of drivers. You have to manage their earnings, their payments, you have to adjust the incentive structures. You have to, so Uber is a company where it's not a quarterly planned company. We look at a business like week over week, right? So for me, it was at that point, so you do something this week. It was like learning statistics. Like you do A/B testing, you take a control group, you test it out with them, a new incentive plan, you, and each time you do something, you are actually spending money. Like Arundhati covered, like Uber was the biggest unicorn startup ever, right? And we kind of were burning a lot of money at that point to conquer markets. So each week when you make a decision, like it's in lakhs, like one number you change and you spend lakhs into payments, and that is, it's a negative running business. And slowly I was able to understand the end to end of the business and slowly try to put my weight in. So I'll explain how that worked. Is that Uber, being a startup at that point, expected everyone who ran the business to know how to code and, excuse me, know how to code and write SQL queries, run analysis, and set up these incentive plans and all that. But the fact is that they have to hire like management graduates to run the business, but they can't expect them to know how to code. So kind of found a sweet spot over there where I'm learning the business from Uber while I am like good at technical stuff. So I started coding for them. So instead of like do coding for a product or coding or writing a code for the app, I was writing solutions that will help us manage the business better. Like I wrote a VBA, for example, which helped a VBA. It's a Visual Basic Script on Excel where people took an entire day to process payments and find how much we have to pay the drivers. I set up an automated system which would calculate and which will help paying them faster, like a click of a button. And I actually remember um I named the button like to make it funny. I named it like switch the light on. And when you click on that button, the entire script will run and process the entire payments. And then also another one to process the incentive plan for the next week. So imagine like every week, if someone is spending an entire day to understand what the plan should be for the next week, but it's always based on a few parameters and you always do the same transformations. I kind of was able to like build a logic flow to that, right? And to be honest, that's what I believe. Like programming is always a logic flow that you can build into modules that you can plug and play. So for me, it was simple. Like you put in these variables, this has to be the output. You do the same thing each time. Why would a manual person manually do it and take this much time of their day? So by doing this, it became a scalable solution. And another thing that I was able to do was that we had a lot of people sitting and onboarding drivers. So onboarding a driver is like getting their license, their name, their documents, the car documents. And I was able to collaborate with the person who hired me, Dijo, to do a test where we used a Telegram API. Back then, WhatsApp business was not in yet. So we used a Telegram API to build a bot where the bot will have a chat like in the local language in Malayalam and say like, hey, how's your day doing? Like, are you good? Can you send me a license so that we can speed up the onboarding? They send the license. So it became a conversational bot based out of Telegram API, which wasn't launched at that point, but it was a proof of concept that actually got pushed centrally to the India team. And from there, it got pushed to the US. And I mean, that was another great experience I had, to be honest, where like something that you do getting pushed as a proof of concept to this level, right? From there, like it was always helping people. Like I became like the go-to guy for making things easy. Like they want to do a campaign, run the business. We expanded our business to different geofences and areas in Kerala, and I was able to like do scalable solutions which help with the business. From there, what happened is I spent around a year in that role, and that's when Uber Eats decided to launch. That I, to be honest, it's like January 2018 when it's kind of the same team, but it was a different business line. So it's not the same people running both the businesses. So an entire different hierarchy for Uber Eats was being built, and they wanted someone to help them launch Kerala. And I was like, yes, I want to do that. I want a different experience. And oh, that was one of the second best decisions after joining Uber that I've ever done. So I moved to Kochi and I started launching Uber Eats. So launching a business in Uber is like you give 5 people all the power they want. You go run the business, start it up, and run it. So it was 5 of us who have to do everything. So we need so it's like, what do we need first? Do we need people to order from Uber? So we kind of have the Uber rights users that are already there in Kochi. So the next thing is we need restaurants that we don't have. And it was a huge shift for me because Uber being a two-player marketplace where there's only a driver and a rider who's booking the ride, where in when you come to Uber Eats, it's the eater, then the restaurant, and then the courier. And it was so interesting to run the business on a 3-player marketplace where we kind of know how to run couriers because we can copy the driver models that we already have, and eaters we can use our riders, but we don't have any restaurants. And this was one of the most exciting times of my life, where initially the initial month I used to go in Kochi, which is a city I didn't even know, walk around, talk to restaurant owners, from like big restaurant owners. Like I drove to Trivandrum to meet the owner of Paragon, to the different owners of Abad Group, and I actually forgot most of the groups by now, but like you get to talk to these big business people and talk a deal with them, and you tell them that you should join Uber Eats. We'll take a commission from you, but we'll give you an incremental order volume, and our delivery people will deliver the food. And it was really interesting because I have no exposure to talking to business people, or like essentially it's B2B sales, right? And it was so interesting, and I didn't know how to even crack it. So then, me being me, went back to the tech side of me. So how can I be more practical about it and do it in a better way? So then it was I think at that point I used Google Places API to actually run a script to get the good reviewed restaurants in Kochi, and then intersecting it where we want to launch, and then prioritizing my sales pitches or the people I go to sell to or talk to based on that. And it kind of helped me in a really good way, because top business people who own the city in terms of business kind of understand, rather than going from place to place and talking to every restaurant. And later on, I was able to give this so how Uber works is that it's a very lean structure. So when you do something out of the box, you get exposure to the person who's reporting manager, your skip level manager, in short, my bad. So what happened is my skip level manager then saw this, like, dude, like we need this to be scaled across India. Do you want to move to India central analytics team and take it up as a bigger project? And that's how, by April, after spending 4 months launching Kerala Eats, I moved to Delhi to take up the same kind of role as an India level, where I kind of started building scale solutions at an India level to run the business, because we were going from a 9 city business, which was Kochi, to scale to a 40 to 50 city business, and we cannot scalably hire people at that format, which is my expertise, using tech to reduce manpower to scalably run the business. So once I moved to Delhi, I started building the same kind of solutions at an India level, which was very interesting, because Kerala was your forte. You know the language, you know the people, uh, and you know how to run your business there. But when it comes to India, uh, it's so, you know how it is, right? Like the languages, the different kinds of people, the different kinds of needs of each type of restaurants. The one in Delhi, the sales style of the restaurant in Delhi wouldn't work for Bombay. It wouldn't be working for a Bangalore. And another interesting part was that Kerala, we were the first players and we didn't have any competition. But when you go to North India, like we were like 3 years behind in Bangalore, where it was already led by Swiggy and Zomato. And at that point, it was a lot of interesting problems to solve, like where to target first, which restaurant should we get first to skip ahead and get a better margin than our competition in the market. And to calculate that and target and strategize our business like that, I kind of started working with the strategy and planning team and the finance team, so that our economics are still going well. And after that point, I again spent 4 months doing it for the India business, and the same thing happened again. Some of my solutions got exposure to the APAC team, and they kind of liked it, and they kind of gave me an offer that if you want, you can join the APAC team and take care of the Asia Pacific countries. So at that point, we had India, Sri Lanka, we had Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, Taiwan. Uh, so I was like, it's a no-brainer. And they also said you could get to travel to all these places too. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And that's how in August of 2018, I actually joined for the APAC role, where my role was to actually do the same thing at a scaled way again, but in different countries right now. So moving from Kerala to India itself was a huge scaling factor for me, where the languages and the diversity was affecting. And now they are asking me to run it and for all these different countries. But that's the fun of it, right? And using that, I actually got to travel to a lot of these countries like Japan, Sri Lanka, like, and started talking with a lot of people. Like, I never thought I would have like really close friends and colleagues that I would work with in a different country. Like, I didn't know I'll have a really good Japanese friend that I'll talk to like every other day, or I'll hit it off with a Taiwanese friend and get to work over there, right? And that's how it works. So initially, I was like very scared because it was my first exposure of working with people who are not Indians, to be honest. And suddenly, it took some time, but I realized it's normal. And if you can show and you have the skill sets you have been honing from the beginning of your life till now, and you've been sharpening it till today, it is not something that anyone else can bring to the plate or to the table, my bad. And if my skill set is unique in a way, it's obviously attracting attention. So I started to play the game of having fun with this, right? So what happened next was I started working and understanding the problems of each country, and you can logically solve any problem, and started scaling the solutions I built for Kerala. Then I moved it to India and started scaling it to an APAC level. And suddenly I became like the lead analyst who was the go-to person for APAC, and started having very good relationships with most of my stakeholders across. And that is when my boss of my new boss saw my work, and he was flying into Japan, and he asked me to come over there and meet him. So I met with him and we kind of hit it off, and we started thinking of how we can move the things and solutions that I'm thinking about, and also other solutions that across the globe in other countries that are building, and scale it globally. And he said, I need to build a global team, and I count on you for your help when once I build it. And I was like, yeah, for sure. Tell me what you need. And uh, next thing I know, he hired an entire global analytics team in US, and he called me like, hey Thomas, can you fly into New York for a couple of weeks and onboard them and set them up, get them up to speed? And I was like, yes, for sure. And yeah, and that's how I took my first trip to the US in like Feb 2019. I flew in, met the team, they were wonderful. And the best thing about working with a tech team was that till now you are like a lone ranger. Like, you are the tech person in every team you're working for. You don't have a team. So you think about the problems, you solve it, and you give the solution. But you cannot jam with them about the technical side of things, only the business side of things. And what happened at that point is that I started being so excited working with this tech team. So after my 2 weeks got over, I pinged the senior director who asked me to come over there and said like, hey, I love this team. I loved onboarding them. I loved the work we did together. And I asked him like, do you think like I'm a good fit. And he's like, obviously, like, who else would I hire? Like, I didn't think you wanted to move out of India. And I was like, I mean, I don't mind. I would like to do this global role and probably scale the solutions I have. And that's when my process to actually move to the US started. And I had to finish my work that I was already doing in APAC and started taking steps to move to the US. And once I moved to the US, it was the biggest difference was that I mean, the role I'm in now in the US is I have to be in a technical team. So compared to my previous experience in Uber, I really loved the business side of things a lot. So I didn't want to completely be in a tech role where I'm part of the engineering team building a part of the app or the product, but I wanted to get the taste of the business along with it. And gladly, this tech team, this team under the tech bracket, actually reports on business things also. So the I'll try to explain it better. The kind of roles and responsibilities that my team currently holds is that you are a tech team who is supposed to give the strategies and advice and reporting to okay strategies and advice and reporting to the executive leadership of the Uber Eats business globally. And this was huge because uh, that is another area I wanted to excel in, where you learn how to do or talk to an executive leadership team, where how do they think about business, how do you run a global business and think about each country differently, where do you invest next, where do you launch next, what is the go to market strategy, where do you move back, where do you push forward. And I was so glad I took this role. And currently I actually work with this team, and the roles and responsibilities shift between reporting to executive leadership in terms of how is our business going right now, where can we improve, and what's the next step that we can take, where should we launch, what should be our go-to market strategy. And the best thing about that is Uber has all the data points you need. You just need to run it, run your models, and give them the right answer. And I couldn't ask for a better job right now. I'm so happy where I am right now because I get more of the tech world. I am in a tech team, so you're not alone anymore. You collaborate with your tech team. You work with the business side of things also. And to specify on certain exciting things I'm doing right now is I'm kind of trying to build a geographical hierarchy of the globe on open data sets like population and economic background, and geographically from a small point to a postal code to a state to a district to a state to the country to the globe. And I'm trying to build a model to profile the globe like that, and that's one of the things I'm working on right now. um I think, yeah, that's it for me. The only thing I'll add now is that a lot of people I met over my journey has helped me, and they are all still with me. I'm still in touch. So the only big takeaways I would give to all the listeners and the college students is that I hope my experience and the steps I took at each point or my decision making made some kind of sense to you guys. And this is a new chapter that I'm writing with you guys. And if you want to continue with this journey with me, you can always ping me, connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can take it up from there. Because I had a lot of good mentors. I'm so glad they are all there for me at different stages of my life, and I want to be that for everyone. And I strongly believe it's by teaching is the only way you can better excel yourself. And I love teaching and guiding people. So feel free, no age requirements. You can reach out to me. I can help you guys in whatever way I can, whatever direction you want to take in with my experience I have. And I actually have mentees who are senior to me, bigger MBA graduates, IIT graduates who I talk to every other day and mentee. They are mentees to me. So feel free to do that. I think with that, can we move to Q&A?
Yeah, now let's move on to some questions from the audience. Participants can post their questions in the comment box.
Oh, okay. I can see the questions. So the first one is from Supri. Oh, before this, I'll just say this. Um, I went through it pretty fast. I didn't know how interesting it would be for people to listen to the things I did personally. So feel free to put questions over here and reach out. So the first question is from Supriya P. Thank you for the question, Supriya. Hi, Thomas. I will post a question here. Okay, it comes up in the chat. Oh, okay, my bad. It's not from Supriya. Question is from Sankita. My bad. Hey Sankita, thanks for the question. How did being a part of CSI InApp Awards and ultimately winning the title mold your career? I think I kind of covered that on the call. So to be really honest about the InApp Awards back in my year, I ended my 4 years in college and I was kind of anti-placement at that time, and I didn't sit for any of my placements, and I didn't take up my job offer from EY too. So at that point is when Biju sir, who's with InApp right now, back then he was the HOD of IT in my college and the head of placement, and he said like, you guys have to do and go and present your project here. It's a really good event, and because of his push, we went there, and the main reason we didn't want to do it is that it was a highly technical project and it was very hard to explain, because when you go to the details of it, back then when we used to explain it to people in college, they wouldn't actually understand many aspects of the project. And what helped the most is the final panel session. I still remember now, with amazing people with amazing questions, which actually triggered our interest to actually take it further. So what happened immediately after this is that the project that was kind of shutting down kind of kicked back in. Then we huddled again with Biju sir, thinking, should we go for patenting this? What is the next step that we should do here? And I think the biggest thing that I would take away from this is that a group of friends that I can still count on and that I'm still in touch. And one day this project or this team is going to do something really great, that I'm sure of. So I think that's how it is molding my career. Next question is from Alan Joshi. How did I how can I find what technologies I should mainly focus on if I'm interested in building my own business? Okay. So, I mean, the technologies you focus on is not the priority that you should have first if you're building your own business. That is my first thing, because the technology for me would be the last step. I mean, big example from my experience in Uber is that like around a couple of months back, there was this problem statement that we were trying to solve, and my teammate was like, we should write a script in Python and we should automate it and take a week and do it. And I was like, uh, problem solving can be done in different methodologies. And I said, give me 1 hour, I can code in Google Sheets and give you a better solution which is more apt to this problem. So my answer to your question would be, define your business a model, understand what your business is, and then what you plug in as the technology that you want is always a plug and play. Because if your business has like a b c d boxes and each box has smaller pieces in them, each module is a reusable, think of it as a reusable technology. So probably your box A is written in Python, your box B is should be written in something more native, you wrote it in Java, and your different pieces are coming as different outputs and you're combining it manually in the beginning. But in the end, you can replace your Java code with the Python code and maybe plug it back in together. And even with websites and everything, you can see the languages or the technologies that you use always change. And now it's cloud computing, like people use AWS, right? So depending on your business model and what your model is, if it's a streaming service, maybe you'll have to go through big cloud or AWS. So we can talk later on if you have more clarity on what you want to do one on one, because on a general basis, this is my best advice to you on your own business. Next questions from Kavya. What difference did you feel about Uber in India to Uber in SF? I mean, the biggest difference I felt is that my workload is so much less in compared to what I used to do in India. Because I think back home, just because I said, right, for me personally, I was the only technical person in all the teams I used to work for, because I was in the operation side but a technical person. And I had to continuously churn up the entire solution of every problem statement, take my time and always do it. So I used to work a lot. Other than the things I had to do, me being a good Samaritan, I used to help other people also on their problems. Two sides to it. I love solving problems which I've not seen before. I'm kind of an addict to that. But the second thing is, like, they are good friends of mine. So when I moved over here, the biggest change inside Uber for me is the kind of team I'm working for, where there's a more of a tech team I'm in. So you can like divide and conquer among yourselves. So that has been the biggest change for me. Next question is from Akhil Sunny. Thanks for your question, Akhil. What method do you actually take in analyzing and tackling a problem statement? Okay, that's a priority question. Really good. So, in my context with Uber, I would say like the tools I would use directly if I have a quick thing right now. So Uber is a heavy spreadsheet oriented company, and it depends on the problem statement. If it's something related to you need what is happening there right now. So the first step for me would be SQL. SQL is the first step in most of the things in Uber, where you write your query to get the raw data set that you need to apply your analysis on. So you crack on the SQL first. We use HiveQL over here. And then the second step would be what kind of problem statement is. If it's something for tomorrow urgently, I'll probably load it into a sheets thing if it's possible. If it's too big of a data set, like millions of rows or something, I my next step would be Jupyter notebooks, using a data frame and running it through that. And even if that can't handle, I'll probably have to uh, cut the data set and analyze in such a way that I get the output, but I'll probably club it by the different mega regions or countries. But again, it will be through Jupyter notebooks. And that's kind of the steps we usually take over here. If it's more of a visualization kind of solution, probably I'll stick to Tableau for now. Like my first jump would be Tableau. Or we also have a few internal visualization tools which are also really good. But yeah, that's my answer for the question. Hope that answers it, Akhil. And if you have any specific problem statement you have, if you want to run it by me, feel free to ping me later on. No worries. Um, Next question is from um, Kiran KV, I think. Yeah, Kiran KV. Uber Eats started in US in August 2014 and Uber Fresh in Santa Monica, California in 2015. So why is it so challenging to implement same in Kerala or elsewhere in India? Could you please? Okay. Okay, cool. So that's I'll just correct Uber Eats actually first tested its launch in Toronto, Canada. Actually, it's not in the US, but yeah, um, the challenges in India. I mean, I'm the best person, I guess, at this point to answer it. To be really frank, India was a very tricky business, like I said, where we came in much later after our competitors were placed. But of that, Uber Kerala was a very good business. Like Uber Kerala was one of our biggest markets when we used to run the India business back then, before we exited. But because we were the first people in there, and the brand presence was really huge, and that helped us the best. And kind of I feel like because I own the process in some way, I have some credit to that, but maybe it's not. It's probably the market. When it comes to India as a whole, the complications would be that Uber, being a global company, will have to run its product in a global fashion. So it is not customized for each region that we run in. And that, I think, would be the high level answer to your question, where you see like a Swiggy or a Zomato, you see something today, you want to change it, you change it in the next coming weeks, because your market is that. Your market is India, and you build it for India, right? Where here we have to take care of every city across the globe that we run in. And I think that was the biggest challenge. And I mean, to be honest, the competition in general was not helping, right? Like it was a very tough marketplace. If you are like familiar with the delivery space numbers for India, you would already know like how tough a marketplace it is. And obviously, and at the same time, it's a last like mobility business where the unit economics, so the economics of the business is also not that easy to run in India. And when it's that much competition, and when the entire model is to burn money, if you look at the numbers from other platforms, you'll know that these were the probable reasons, I would say personally for me, that the major difference it is there to implement it in Kerala and India. um, I hope that answers your question, but this is my personal take from my point of view. That may not be the point of view that business took for obvious reasons. Um, Next question is from Jeffy. In this COVID times, it might be difficult for Uber in terms of business like it used to be before. How's this new change taken up? Okay, that's a really good question. Like, I think the previous speaker also talked about how it affected a lot of unicorns or previous startups during these times. Yeah, like we actually publicly reported that the Uber business, the rides business, our core business was actually really down because no one is moving, right? And Uber's whole motto of the rides business is to move stuff. But the luckiest move people, but the luckiest thing with Uber compared to our most competitors is that like Uber rides is just our one line of business. We have like Eats, Uber Freight, and we had Jump, which we recently let go. But we had multiple lines of business that is there for Uber. When Uber rides and Jump took a hit during these times, Uber Eats like really took it well because everyone was staying home. Delivery became a very natural thing for a lot of people. I don't know how it came through in Kerala or India, but I understand even in India, I heard Zomato and other platforms were adding groceries and other things like pharmaceutical items into their portfolio. where for Uber Eats, it was like a good time. So personally, me working with Uber Eats right now, it was a booming time for me. Actually, COVID, I had to add so much more work than usual because like our business was booming and we had to like really keep track of it. So that is how the new change has been taken up. And now that each city is opening up bit by bit, Uber is also opening it up according to each city's regulations, I guess. So it won't be like straight up now we are all going back to business. It's going to be in a phased fashion based on how each city opens up globally. Next question from Naufal Rigel. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. In terms of business, how can you differentiate the performance of Uber before COVID, during, and how do you plan the same post COVID? I mean, I can give you like my perspective and I'll add on to my previous answer because it's kind of the same question or adding on to it. For me, like I said, like Uber as a whole has different lines of businesses, and rides are slowly picking up post COVID, which is an important part of a business. Eats did a lot of good business. So for Eats, probably it's to maintain a lot of that business even post COVID. And I think that will be the two perspectives I have for the two main lines of businesses we run. uh, during COVID, many other things we did like product changes and all, like leave at door so that you don't open up and hand it out, and pickup was made free, and many small changes were done according to the rules of different countries. But on a whole business standpoint, I think that's the answer I have, I guess. Next is from Madhav. I'm a second year college student and I'm interested to follow a path in data analytics. Where should I start my study with, and how should I progress through? Okay, I mean, I think if you are a second year college student, I'm not sure what trade you're doing. I think like for data analytics, my thought process would be first step is to know what data is. So, I mean, to give you context, during my college days, I used to take freelance work, and where I try to do data mining, data cleanup. So to really understand data and to transform data, in the sense, even before the analysis, making data consumable for analysis would be a good first step to have. So regular expressions, querying, those would be the maybe first two few things that I would learn uh, to get the data transformed and get it in my hand. Next step, when it comes to analytics, like I earlier said, like if it's a quick and go analytics, you can actually hone your skills in spreadsheets, because that is always a good feather to have in your cap, because that's quick and dirty, and it can solve most of your needs, like unless it's like a big business or data set. Next level of advancement I would suggest is if you are familiar starting to get familiar with Python. So then you can start playing around with Jupyter notebooks, Pandas library. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but those analytics libraries in Python, understanding table transformations using Python would be the kind of advanced step I would say. In between, like if you want to play around, where I have done, like you can tinker around with VBA scripts for Excel, which is actually a good kind of exposure, because uh, it's kind of useful sometimes, because and it's never too bad to have too many options with you, right? Sometimes that will be the fastest option or the option that you need. So I think like if you are starting new, Madhav, this kind of three-step approach is what I can think on top of my mind. um again, feel free to reach out. We can talk about in more detail. I don't know where you are at right now in your skill set, so I can guide you better. Feel free to connect with me. um questions from Arjun. Okay, thanks Arjun for your question. What can you suggest the students graduating from college this year during COVID that can help them to handle their careers and life? Okay, this is a very general question, but yeah, I totally get it. It's been a really tough time. um um but might I say, I would say it's my answer would be same if it's not, if it's during COVID or not during COVID. My belief in general always is, what is your personality or what is your ability that you are bringing? So say you know to code in Python, you know three different languages, four different languages. Like I said, over my career at different stages, in school, in college, in different times, I use different languages or different things, right? So your core ability as a person is what you should like polish, like kind of what do I say, like who, why would that, so if you are like applying for a company, like why should that company hire you? Because if there are two people sitting there with the same skill sets, they know all the languages, they did the online certifications, then what is it that is making you different from them? And that is what you should ask yourself, I would say. Maybe it is about something you are interested in personally, um, some local solution that you did for your local church, something you did for a private NGO, some analysis you did for freelance. So internships, work are things you do for work, but even if you do it like on a professional standpoint, my question always would be, what did you do different? Why did you do this? And if you can bring that personal factor or that your personal aptitude in that, I think that will be the changing factor, be it post pre-COVID or post-COVID or during COVID for me. Because even during these times with layoffs and all this happening, I am in SF and huge layoffs are happening, and the biggest thing is hiring is also happening. It's not like everything is shut shop, so then who are they hiring, right? It's always there. And obviously you have to stand out, and who is that person you are for them, and are you able to articulate that well to them? And maybe it's through projects you have done, maybe it's through some thought you have, maybe like it can be anything. And again, Arjun, we can take it up personally, one on one. Feel free to do that. I can maybe guide you better if I have more details. Hope I answered it properly and not let it go in a philosophical point of view. Next question is from Mary. What is your opinion about delivery robots and their scope? I mean, it. I don't know how to answer this, but to me also it's like a prototype thing you see, right? In uh, you can see the prototypes running. I'm like, I'm fine with it if it works. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a very strong opinion for it. It's same as self-driving cars for me. If we solve that problem and are able to function it, obviously it's a very good thing. But I think, yeah, that's my very simple, straightforward answer. It's a good problem to solve, and it will be amazing if we will be able to solve it. A lot of problems are there in that. It's not as simple as you think when you say, I don't know if you're talking about uh, flying, like drone delivery or robots like on the road. But I hope I answered your question. It's kind of vague, but we can have a long chat about it, Mary. I have lots of point of views about this, but on a high level, this is my point of view. Feel free to reach out. Next question is oh, and can they ever? Okay, I think it's an addition to the previous question. What is the opinion about delivery robots and can they replace actual couriers? Again, I mean, it is as practical as saying what is the future about any robot, right? You cannot say it's just delivery robot. What's the future about your personal robot that can go to your local margin free market and shop you vegetables? What's the possibility of any kind of robotic solution, right? I think it will be close to that. And if it's a robot on the ground, it has a lot of things. It's close to the same problem as self-driving cars, if I may say, because if a robot has to go through the road and drop food at your place after picking it up, obviously lots of problems to be solved over there. And I think it will be closely related to self-driving cars and the solutions that it can bring, to be honest. But yeah, very futuristic thought. I appreciate that question. I think with that, we have come to the end of our questions, and I was able to keep it in time. One more minute left. I am happy I was able to do that. Thank you guys for joining. Over to the MC,
Uh,
Akila.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for the very interactive session. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Anil Saraswati, CTO of InApp Information Technologies, to share a few words about the session. Sir, please.
Hi Thomas, how are you? Must be getting pretty late there.
Oh yeah, it's 11:30 here.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Anlangal.
Okay. So Thomas, thank you so much for taking us through your rather interesting journey from Trivandrum to San Francisco, and it appears that en route your journey, you have been sort of lucky to be able to utilize your right mix of business and technical acumen, which is in fact a very terrific combination. I think also the global exposure you have obtained in the process, seem to have sort of nurtured the problem solving mentality in you. So I've heard a lot about your contribution to LaughFest, mostly through the stories your dad shared with me. And I know, you might remember we have also met a few times in the past, thanks to our family friendship. But most of such gatherings, as you know, ends up being a typical Loyola Old Boys party, nothing more than that. And now after listening to you, I wish we had spent at least some time talking about data science, because that's also one topic that I really hold close to my heart. So you should promise that next time we meet, we should delve deeper into some data science discussions. I know my Loba friends might give me a hard time for that, but that's fine.
For sure, like we'll find our time for sure.
Yes,
I'm also excited to do that.
Yeah, I'm actually a fan of Uber engineering, especially the AI labs where we have used the demand prediction architecture, that paper from them in one of our projects. I've also tinkered with Ludwig, and so we have a lot to discuss. Yeah.
Oh wow, you have tinkered with. Okay, I actually I'm also a huge fan of the AI Labs team.
Yes.
I'm actually learning from them. They're like very senior. Crazy folks, crazy profiles. I'm like, masters teach me, and like I attend sessions they do, and we can talk with them and work with them, and that's pretty cool.
And you're mentioning about the conversational chatbot you mentioned. I think they also have one called Plato. Yeah. So anyway, it was nice seeing you in this webinar. I think you have done your family and school and all of us well-wishers around here proud by getting into one of the prestigious institutions in the world. And I want to take this opportunity to wish you the very best for attaining even greater heights in your career. And finally, on behalf of CSI and InApp, I would like to thank you for doing this webinar late in the evening. So please go get some sleep. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle. And thank you, Biju sir, for coordinating this with me.
Bye.
Thank you, Anil sir, for your kind words. I take this opportunity to thank Mr. Thomas Tilley, who agreed to take this session, even though it's almost 11:30 there. Thank you so much, sir. This marks the end of our sessions for today. Join us tomorrow at sharp 5 p.m. IST for the next session in the webinar series. We have 2 sessions on bionics as well as biomedical engineering tomorrow. Register using the links shared on our Facebook page or on our official website. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great day ahead. Thank you.